Welcome to Real Talk, Real Estate Discussions with Andrew Kirsh. In each episode, Andrew interviews industry leaders. We'll hear their real-time opinions on today's market, their background and unique career highlights, and guidance for newcomers into the industry. You can find this show at sklarkirsh.com and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. Now here's the host of Real Talk, Andrew Kirsh.
Episode 87 of Real Talk. It's conference season. I was at the Real Estate Private Equity IMN conference in Laguna Beach a couple weeks ago, and last week I was at NMHC in Las Vegas, and the sentiment really at both of those conferences is optimism. Capital wants to deploy more equity this year, and brokers are optimistic that we are going to have a strong transactional year in 2026. For Sklar Kirsh, the second half of 2025 was quite active, so I can only imagine how active we will be in the coming year. On this week's show, I have my good friend, Sean Fulp on. Sean wears two hats. He's vice chairman of Colliers, and he's also the founder of a new real estate prop tech company called Duxre. We have a wide-ranging conversation about the office market and also how Duxre is disintermediating the real estate business with their new app platform. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Sean Fulp. Welcome to another edition of Real Talk. I'm here with my good friend, Sean Fulp, Vice Chairman and Head of Capital Markets of Colliers, and also the founder of Duxre. Sean, Happy New Year, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
We were talking before we taped. I got to spend New Year's Eve with your family, but not you. You were a little under the weather.
This is kind of funny being in this room with you because I think back like 5-6 years ago when we were really trying to figure out content with our business and how to kind of bring it into commercial real estate and marketing, and coming into your office with some videographers and then doing a podcast segment with you.
I know.
Or I think at that time we were doing more like Instagram lives. So it's kind of funny how, trying to be like always forward thinking and seeing kind of what the industry needs and kind of seeing it come to fruition. It's really satisfying to be here right now and to kind of sit in this room with you, because I think you've done a great job, like what you've taken where you've taken your business and how you've implemented this into, as an attorney, right? Like you go back 20 years, what it was like for attorneys. And I mean, business development wasn't even something that they were supposed to be doing, right? And
so there was a time where I don't even think lawyers could like solicit any type of business.
Yeah.
It would be...
We've moved way past that.
Yeah, thankfully. I wouldn't know what to do. But I vividly remember doing that Instagram live with you at my old house, the Palisades house, in the depths of COVID. And thank God that was another time.
Yeah.
So a lot to talk about. But let's first talk about personal, because I think you're the only person I know from Alaska.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure it's a talking point. Wow. I always hear it when I'm with you, when people meet you, where are you from? You say Alaska, and then they do a double take. So
we're going to go there, huh? Okay.
Well, let's just start there.
Yeah.
What is it? What was it like growing up in Alaska?
Yeah. So that, I get that question a lot.
Yeah.
Alaska is one of those places that people find very just distant and interesting. And for me, it was being in Alaska. We grew up in a place in Alaska that was remote for most Alaskans. So I grew up on Kodiak Island, was there for the first 20 years of my life. So I did actually my first year of college at University of Alaska Anchorage, but did that on the satellite campus in Kodiak, very, very small satellite campus. But yeah, a family with 6 kids, and born and raised there. And, I graduated high school in 1996, so it was pre-internet. So you really are remote and disconnected. And it feels like a completely different lifetime because of the way we live today and the way I grew up. I would never trade it for anything, right? I think that we all kind of revel in being able to disconnect and the potential of just venturing out and living a life like that right now. I think that we especially with technology and how if it's kind of come into our lives and the distractions and noise, it was very, very peaceful when I look back and think about how I grew up.
Is there a movie or television show that captures Alaska, which you say, okay, it's pretty accurate, whether it's Northern Exposure or that Al Pacino movie, I think, where it was sunny like 24 hours a day, or
Insomnia
or Insomnia, yeah. And then there was a True Detective that took place in Alaska, I think. Do you watch any of them and say...
I don't watch any of them. I actually, almost every time somebody asks me about Alaska, they bring up a show that they're watching that's based in Alaska, right?
Right.
So it's like, you should watch this. I was like, well, I lived it.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I've got, been to Hawaii dozens of times and have clients that are based in Hawaii. I feel like people are still more intrigued by you living in Alaska than someone living in Hawaii. I don't know if it's because of the cold or further away, or people haven't traveled there as much.
It is an impressive destination. I just think about in 2014. Actually, I think back like over 10 years ago. I was like, okay, done. I'm done. I'm gonna take people up there. I'm gonna take like 10, 15 clients up there. Gonna do Alaska trip and give them the full Alaskan experience. Well, we almost got killed by bears. We almost died on like a remote, like 4-wheel trip that we went on. Like I won't do it again because I'm surprised we didn't get airlifted out of there. But it was an extreme trip and the people that were on that trip will probably, I know that they remember it vividly and would attest that was an amazing trip.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys
got everything they wanted.
I'm sure you guys talk about that today.
Yeah,
I mean, look, you can go on a boring golf trip or ski trip, or you could be almost killed by bears.
Yeah. We weren't supposed to get that close to them, but we got kind of stuck, and they just surrounded us, and we were just like with our pilot who had a pistol, and we were like, well, if we're gonna get mauled, at least it's gonna be a story.
Oh my God. Well, I remember us meeting. I want to say at the IMN conference in January of 2014. Our daughters were just born.
Yeah.
Mercer born in September, I think September 1st, if I correct.
Exactly.
And then Clementine a couple months later. And then we said, we got to introduce our wives. And then we all had like this play date on Valentine's Day in 2014. And my wife still calls it our anniversary. So it's been great just to see the growth of your family and professionally. So talk about, before we get into where you see the market today, but let's give a little preview or summary of your background from growing up in Alaska to you being here today. So what were the steps?
Yeah, so I transferred college in about midway through and went down to finished at Sac State, and that's where my brother was. He was working for Sacramento State University. He was in the athletic department, and literally 2 weeks before my junior year, I asked him if he'd walk my application over to admissions because I wanted to get out of Alaska. And so that's how I landed in Sacramento. And then, I had to kind of just find my way. And I kind of fell into commercial real estate because I was working at like a higher end racket club. And most of the people, I looked at the lifestyles of everybody that were members there. And I was like, those commercial real estate guys and gals really have it made. Like they've got control of their schedule. They can make as much money as they want. They're challenged by all aspects of business. And so I kind of just, ingratiated myself with them and found my way to figuring out a way to get into brokerage and started brokerage in Sacramento and started doing leasing and sales because you got to have to do a little bit of everything. It's a secondary market, so you got to be able to touch all product types. And that led me to kind of, even doing some retail as well. But the depth of the last recession, the great financial crisis, I just knew that Sacramento was going to be the last to recover. It was one of the first to fall. It was going to be the last to recover. And I was starting to get into sales and to be more on the capital market side, which is like investment sales and in the finance and raise side of commercial real estate. I knew I needed to be in a bigger market. And so took the chance of moving to San Francisco and teaming up with a couple colleagues in San Francisco to rebuild the firm that I was at that time, Carey Commercial, rebuilt their capital markets team in San Francisco. And that was when I really started to become a specialist and focusing on really office investment sales and selling office product in and around the Bay Area. We didn't do too much in the city. We were but we did a lot in the surrounding markets, the Mid-Peninsula, San Jose, Santa Clara. And
what time
and
period
the
are we
East
talking
Bay.
about?
This is like we're coming out of the great financial crisis. So this is like 2010, 2009, 2010, and then and all the way to 2014. And that's when I came down to LA to build my practice down here. And so I've been in a few different markets, Sacramento, San Francisco, and LA, and I've sold product all over the Western US. And the thing that's really helped me kind of build my career was in the last financial crisis, CMBS was a big issue, the defaults around CMBS. And for a younger guy in that time, I think I was in my early 30s, you had to kind of go figure out how I'm going to build my own book of business. And to do that, you had to kind of go find fresh clients. Those fresh clients were the special servicers. These were the people that were going to control dispositions, and they didn't really have any legacy relationships. So we traveled all over the country, developed relationships with all the major special servicers, figured out the conferences that we needed to attend, tried to really understand commercial CMBS and how it operated, because it really was bond investing versus real estate investing. And so I did that, and to this day, a lot of those relationships that I developed 15 years ago, those people are still in their roles that they're in today. And trust me, when you are venturing into truly a different industry and you're in those conference halls and you really don't know what you're talking about, because it had no bond experience. I was a local market expert. I knew my markets, but I didn't really understand the bond industry. And you're buying these conference passes and you're walking these halls and you're trying to introduce yourself and you have nothing to offer. They know you're a salesperson, right? They know you want to sell the product, but they're not ready to sell it. And so it's like you had to keep showing up and earn my stripes. And today it's paying off, because office is the new retail. So retail was a big problem coming out of the last cycle, and now office, I kind of combine the core expertise of the product that I've dealt the most with, and then you kind of combine it with the downtown LA and some of the markets that are having the biggest issues, and then those past relationships I've had. So it's kind of like it's all kind of coming together, thank goodness, right? Because a lot of time and effort has been put into it, but that's kind of been a little bit of my journey.
Yeah, I definitely want to dive into where you're seeing the market now. But before we do that, just more on your background. So you were in the Bay Area those years, 2009 to 14, and then what prompted you to come down to LA?
Well, it was Mercer. So Shadi was pregnant at that time with our first child. We've only have two, but with our first child, and her family's from LA. So wanting to be closer to her family was a big part of it. But I had left CRE Commercial, which was in an arrangement with Newmark at that time. They had a licensing deal. Newmark had not acquired CRE Commercial, and this was in like around the 2014 mark. And I had left CRE Commercial and moved over to a company that was at the time called Rockwood Real Estate Advisors. And this is a boutique kind of intermediary out of New York that was affiliated with CW Financial and Fortress. And so what Fortress had tried to do is buy a brokerage firm and wanted to expand it across the country. And because they wanted to get into the operating side of the business, and they needed a broker to kind of lead that effort. And so they reached out to me because of the relationships that I had with Fortress, and asked me to kind of come on and lead that effort. And I was going to oversee the Western U.S., build offices, and develop kind of a investment sales, capital markets, brokerage company for them. And I did that for about a year or so, and then they sold it, spun that off to 10X or auction.com. And I say all that because there was a moment in time between when I was at CRE Commercial and Newmark, and where I went off and was basically was really kind of the true tech side of the business at that point in time, which was auction.com, one of the few platforms that are out there. And because I just felt like the business was, like all industries, was set to kind of start to change, and technology needed to be part of that effort. And so I was really interested in figuring out, how to solve some of our pain points and using technology to do that. And so I did that for a bit, but then that business plan and with the direction that 10X and Auction.com were taking their business was away from deal making, away from brokerage. And so I then came back to Newmark. When I came back to Newmark in 2014, I had the choice to rebuild the team in San Francisco or take those efforts and move them to LA. I knew it was going to be hard either way. And the competitive set of brokerage teams, investment sales, finance brokerage teams in San Francisco is much deeper than it is in LA. Mm-hmm. And I also was looking at the next 10, 20, 30 years of my life and what market would be more interesting to be in. And while San Francisco is a high beta market, it's a fairly small market. Southern California is much more. It's much the volume of product, the type of product, the depth of private and institutional capital. So made the leap because family, but also just I just feel like over the next 20, 30 years, Southern California is a much more interesting place to be a broker in.
Yeah. And you still find that today?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, other than, there's a lot of interesting things that are happening currently in San Francisco right now with artificial intelligence.
Sure.
And the Bay Area as a whole, but it is a much smaller market, right? It's not. I mean, the international capital, they're really truly it flows through Southern California more so than really San Francisco, and Bay Area.
But what are your thoughts in terms of the comeback of or the state of office today in Southern California versus Northern California? 2 years ago, no one would have bought an office building, almost any type of product in San Francisco. And now fast forward, you have a new mayor, new school board. AI has obviously driven the rebound, and San Francisco has become a city or a market that institutional investors are interested in pursuing again. I don't know if we're there yet in Los Angeles.
We're not there yet, but in San Francisco, I mean, all West Coast cities have policy issues.
Yeah,
that's the number one thing that's holding all these cities back, and there's a lot of topics when you go into policy issues, and that's happening all around the country. It's just not West Coast, and that's going to limit institutional investment. When you can't rely on the government to kind of lay out certainty with regard to rules of the road, it's difficult to speculate and place bets. But as far as San Francisco, you have real demand drivers, and the biggest demand driver, and it's fast moving, and they've seen the story before, and so there's a lot of high quality assets up there as well. There's newer construction. It's just we have a lot of functionally obsolete product in Southern California. It's also a horizontal market. It's not as vertical. The only real vertical markets are with major concentration is downtown LA. And downtown LA has got a host of issues and concerns, and we can talk more about that. But as far as what we're seeing as far as office as a whole, it's coming. It's started in New York. Miami never really was impacted that because just the migration of companies and population. But in San Francisco, it's as far as the West Coast, we knew it was going to lead coming out of the cycle. And it's there. We're seeing positive absorption, and the tenant demand that they're seeing is greater than anything that they've seen since COVID. So I think the numbers that the tenants in the market numbers are in line with 2019 numbers in San Francisco. And so you're going to see a lot of institutional trades happen this year in San Francisco. And then as far as how does that kind of roll down to Southern California? I think the Silicon Beach, which really kind of came about in the last 10 years, is going to come back again. The same people that were being employed for different by these large technology companies for whatever roles that they were being employed for at those times are repurposing themselves. These are all intelligent, educated people that live here, that want to be here, and the companies want to have a presence here, and you've got great institutions like USC and UCLA that are going to keep pushing out new talent and new fresh talent, and we're going to see those jobs get recreated and really around artificial intelligence and everything that's happening with artificial intelligence. But it's going to happen here. I think it's going to happen back on the West Side in markets like Playa Vista, Santa Monica. And so we'll get our shot. It just takes a little bit of time. And we've already seen the vacancy in a lot of the submarkets flatten out. Mm-hmm. We're bottomed. It's just a question of when do we start to come off that bottom. And I think a lot of people that invested in 2010, 2011, 2012, they'll tell you some of their best investments were in 2013, 2014, because it wasn't about what they were buying it at and the price that they were buying it at. It was when they were coming off that bottom. And so it's all about, time is a big factor of returns. And so if you're having a hold for a couple of years without getting a lift, that impacts your internal rate of return. So it's about when you acquire something and when you can really call bottom and when you're coming off that bottom.
Mm-hmm. So when, we're taping this, essentially the first business day of 2026, we are, representing, multiple types of clients, those that are owning office currently, who are telling me operationally, cash flow wise, they're actually in a good position. Their buildings are full, they're getting decent rents, but as their loans are maturing, they're still in a world of hurt. They can't refinance their debt because of the debt that they put on, in the last cycle. That cap rates have and their values have, decreased to a point where operationally things are great, but from a cap stack perspective, things aren't.
But that's not just office. That's industrial. That's multifamily. Mm-hmm. That's everyone, right? It happens every time with real estate, right? It's debt that gets us in trouble, right? It was too much debt before, and then it was too low of interest rates, which ended up it ends up being the same formula, right? It's too much debt, and so, but yeah, it's recapitalizing these assets is a big issue, and really it's just you're reinvesting in them, so you have to determine, is this asset worth saving? Is this an asset? Is this an office building that I think should still be an office building that tenants will want to lease and want to occupy? And that is a question similar to retail. Retail went through this era with e-commerce and everything else where we had overbuilt retail and we needed to remove stock. We need to remove the stuff that shouldn't have been built. First of all, it was in the wrong location. It was this wrong quality. And so we went through this, we were shedding of this oversupply, and we need to do that with office as well. We have a lot of just office that nobody wants to be in, right? It's not in the wrong location. It's functionally obsolete. And so that product, I think we got like 7 billion square feet of office space around the country. Like that's a lot of office space. But if we cut 2 billion square feet away off that, like the market would right size pretty quickly. And that's what's going to help, is we're going to see the market, the balance of supply and demand happen, not through absorption necessarily, but it's going to be the removal of these buildings that are 40, 50 years old that, a lot of them, the problem too is like we got into this, the last 20 years, it's been private equity that's been investing in office because of the size of the equity checks that they can get out in one office transaction. Office values are typically larger than any other product type, but they would come in and acquire these assets, and they say, well, we're gonna take a private equity model, and we're gonna come in and we're going to buy it cheap, and then we're going to figure out how to fill it up, and then we're going to paint it and do some other modifications, and then we're going to sell it to the next person. But we're not going to replace the roof. We're not going to replace the chillers. We're not going to, we're going to pass it along to the next guy and let him do the work. And no one ever did the work. It traded like 3 or 4 times, and no one ever did the work, right? So these buildings haven't had the capital invested in them that they should have had invested in them to really perform at the level they need to perform at today. And they're not designed in a new age way either.
Yeah, I mean, the demands of tenants today are significant in terms of what they expect their office experience to be like. I mean, look, I'm in an office. We've got a podcast studio right above me. There's a golf simulator that the owner has in his suite.
Do you hear it?
What's that?
Do you hear it?
No, we don't hear it. Well, because he also never uses it. But we wouldn't hear it if he the way that they built it. But beyond that, I mean, you go down just one block. Is it the Lumen Center on Olympic?
Yeah.
And pickleball courts and basketball, and it looks like a country club. And you go to downtown LA, and they can't offer those types of amenities. So how are
you can. I
Yeah.
mean, you talk about these 1 million square foot towers. They're being underwritten to like a stabilized occupancy rate of 75, maybe 80%. So you have 200,000 square feet that you're just saying we don't need. You could do a lot with 200,000 square feet. You could build a mall in one of those buildings if you wanted to with 200,000 square feet, right?
And is that happening?
It should be happening. These buildings are self-contained ecosystems. Like
Right.
We just need the entrepreneurs, the innovators to come and say, what can we create that's going to be an attraction for companies and tenants? And in San Francisco, last cycle, Google and Facebook or Meta were bringing buses up to San Francisco, and then the high-end chauffeur Wi-Fi enabled buses, and picking up their employees and bringing them down to Silicon Valley because they didn't have space in San Francisco. They didn't want to be in San Francisco. They wanted to bring the employees down to the Silicon Valley. And the same thing could happen here. Like companies could go and occupy one of these buildings, control it, self-contained, and then they could go to the West Side and send buses to the West Side and bring people downtown and send them back. And we have this public transit system that really is pretty impressive. Like it's up to us to operate it correctly. But like the Purple Line, which is coming into Century City, is going to be open in months now. And then, what is that going to do once we've connected one of the best markets in the country with downtown? And we all know, like, I think we would all rather get on that line, no matter how, whatever the condition it is, right? Versus bear the LA traffic and sit in traffic for an hour and a half to try to get to a Lakers game. Right. So I do think that connection is going to start to tie downtown LA and Century City. So it'll be very interesting to see, the impacts of that as well.
So what markets within Southern California are you seeing perform the best from we'll call it just a leasing perspective in terms of leasing velocity and rental amounts?
They're all, none of the markets have really started to kind of pick up. The South Bay, and I look at kind of where LA, Orange County and San Diego are sleepier. I mean, San Diego's got biotech, but we all know what's happening with biotech right now. And in LA, the South Bay has more of kind of advanced manufacturing. And so think of like SpaceX and everything that's kind of happening in Hawthorne and El Segundo's got the Manhattan Beach because in sort of lifestyle and everything else. So I think that there's a pretty strong belief that El Segundo will be one of the markets that kind of rises, comes out of this stronger than it was in previous cycles. Culver City is going to continue to do well. Beverly Hills always does well. Burbank is struggling. Hollywood is really trying to figure out how to reinvent themselves with artificial intelligence. The production industry is really struggling because what can be done with AI right now. So that's it. We need Hollywood to survive this era.
Yeah. And so the buyers let me ask it more open-ended. How did 2025 conclude for you in terms of transactional volume and put your crystal ball or look at your crystal ball and see, tell me where you think transactional volume will be in 26 for office in Southern California?
Yeah, our transaction volume went up. And brokers are a good indicator of like what's happening, and you guys see it right just with the docs that you guys are processing, the work that you're working on. You're probably doing less workouts and more, financings and acquisition assignments. But our volume picked up, and a lot of it is because we have a reliable capital stack now. We have a healthy capital markets, meaning more specifically finance side. Like we can go out. Right now we're getting quotes on, and we plenty of bids on EY Plaza, one of the towers that we've got out. So we think that that's going to be one of the first assets to actually get third-party financing, not seller financing, in downtown LA, which that really hadn't happened since we sourced the rescue financing for Union Bank, but that was all private rescue financing that was provided. We have non-private financing sources for EY Plaza. So having that is, we're putting the capital stack together to allow for more transactions. And once you have the debt, then it's all about the equity, and the equity's been the hardest part. I think 2026 is going to be the year for the private investors and family offices. If they don't make their purchases in 2026, they're going to miss out. Because we've heard it from institutional investors, and more specifically the opportunity funds, that they are going to be very selective, but they're going to start making bets in 2026. So we expect that most of the opportunity funds will come into office and at least make one big office bet in 2026, and then obviously more follows that in 2027. So this is probably the prime time for the private investor to go out, be able to buy an asset at a significantly discounted value, capitalize it, right? Because they've got a debt market there for them. And then they've got probably, a lot of them are syndicators. They can go out and be able to syndicate, because now there's not this aversion to specifically office. And I look at everything mostly through an office lens, right, too. So, so that's, we try to solve that problem day in and day out. And so, but I think 2026 will be the year of the private investor, and these will be the buys of a lifetime.
From a purchase price standpoint, buys of a lifetime. But we were just talking a few minutes ago about the repurposing of, 20% of an office building, putting in the amenities that a tenant requires. So the capital outlay that is required above and beyond the acquisition purchase price, how are your buyers able to make money in order for them to attract the type of tenants that they want?
Well, they're buying a lot of these with a lot of cash flow. These are like 10 cap deals. So there's a ton of cash flow that are coming off these assets because the buyer pool is just so thin. So they're able to buy them at that price. But yeah, everyone thinks that you're going to have to like create some new solution to attract tenants, but it never really happens that way. It always just happens because the demand's there, and there's more demand than there is supply. So think of go back to downtown LA, the county bought gas company tower, 1.5 million square feet that's been pulled off the market.
Yep.
LADWP's in the market to buy a building. They'll probably buy a 1 million square foot building, and that'll be another 1 million square feet that's taken off the market. We will probably see one or two more user acquisitions in downtown LA. In total, I would not be surprised if 3 or 4 million square feet in downtown LA gets pulled off the market. And that's the higher quality stuff. That's like 10, 20% of the market, right? So, and all those tenants in those buildings now have to go and find other space. Or you'll see one building get converted to residential or whatever it may be, but the market's going to rebalance pretty quickly. And all of a sudden, tenants are going to say, yeah, I wanted that golf simulator, but we just need space because I need my employees to start working again.
And have you seen a return to office trend for tenants? I mean, it went from, you can work remotely to now maybe a hybrid.
Oh, for sure.
Where are you seeing it in terms of tenants' requirements for in-office for their employees?
Yeah, that was something that we were talking more about like a year ago, right? So okay, so how many days a week? Like I think about like the deals we were touring a year ago, and it was like, okay, we got to do our tours on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Right, Tuesday at 11 o'clock, right before the lunch is provided to them. And then still you'd be like, why is it only half full? Oh, because we got these rotating shifts. Like half the office comes in on Wednesdays, the other half comes on Tuesdays. It's like all these little experiments that we've tried have failed. And so now it's I think we're going back to what was kind of what we all were living pre-COVID. And I tell you what, in San Francisco, it's 6 days a week. So when there's opportunity, people show up. When you're going through the motions, it's like, yeah, I'd like to kind of, be at more of my kids' functions. I want to, I've got to wash the dishes. I got to, I do take care of my dry cleaning. Like, people can fill their time if you allow them to be away from the office. And so listen, I run a company, a technology company, and everyone's remote. And there's a lot of problems with remote, and we do the best we can with all the different messaging applications and everything else. But I would love to have those people in the office.
Perfect segue. Yeah. Let's talk about it. So, you're vice chairman of Colliers, and also the founder of a technology company, Duxre. Talk about, I guess, really the inspiration of this company, and what does it do?
Yeah, so it started through pain points, right? So I'm not a tech guy. I'm a CRE deal maker, and I hit a ceiling with the technology that was available. I was frustrated. We wanted my team to be able to do more volume. I wanted more intelligence. There was things that we were, the friction that we were seeing with the web applications that were available to us, and it was like, if we could just build this. If we could just build that, everything was just too fragmented, too disconnected, and that still exists. That's still the way it is today. But it really, it wasn't so much about building a better tool. I just felt like the industry's upside down, in that the deal maker, and I don't think that I'm any different than most other brokers, which are truly deal makers. Is like, you want to control your brand, you want to control your relationships, your listings, your product. And think about other industries as well. Like, the content creators are the same way. They want direct access to their audience. That's why all the industries are kind of turning over right now, and agents are no different, right? They want their own storefront. And so that's what I wanted to have control over my digital brand. I wanted to have control over my funnel and control over my data. And that's the platform that we built. It was like, I was like, I need one place that I can drive all this traffic can kind of come to, that will see my name, my branding, my voice, and they'll engage with us on this site. And then from there, I needed it connected to kind of a better operating system, one that wasn't just, that was fully integrated, not a bunch of different disparate tools. One of the things that were, and this was never really the true intention of the company, was to build an operating system, but we're all going to hear it more and more, because we're all facing this. It's like tech overload. It's like application overload. If you go, most people go to their browsers. They sit down at their work desk, and they look at their computer screen. They've got 10, 15 browsers open. And if you think about like how many web applications or just software applications that you're using to run your workflows, you'd be pretty surprised. It's probably 15 or 20 different web applications that you're using. And that's what we face every day. There's no way you can, and that has grown, right? It's been, add this, add a note taker now, add, whatever it may be. And it's just like, it's one more application, and people are like done with it. They're like, I want a purpose-built operating system that's like, I want to go to one place, and I don't need Salesforce and a army of consultants to design it for me, because I need three things in that, right? And I don't need that whole CRM solution. I need three things from it, and I need two things from this, and one thing from that. And so that's what we've done. Like, I'm here today because Duxre has freed me up to just be more, to be out in front of clients and do the things that I want to be doing versus working for my technology.
Basic question: what does Duxre mean? Where did that name come from?
So it was kind of funny. It's a longer story, but we were scrambled, and we like ran into a wall because we couldn't use the name that we wanted to use, which is pretty typical of every kind of startup. So Shadi went to her Latin dictionary. She's got she Latin educated person, and she for the whole day she was going through stuff. And Dux is to lead. It means to lead. The UX is in software is user experience. The X stands for universally is an exchange. So you see the red X, it's because it's truly an exchange. RE for real estate, and then the deal for deal maker.
Wow.
So there's a lot to it. There's a lot that goes behind it, and it's not. It's hard to find a 5-letter word that you can get the URL to as well.
And so, how would you compare these? And maybe you have, but as a real estate attorney, we hear of these different applications, but we really don't use them. But the LoopNets, the CREXes, MLSs, you name it. So those that are skeptical and say, we have what Sean is producing. Why is Duxre different? How is this either disintermediating what currently exists, or what's the difference?
So the marketplaces that are out there, whether it's LoopNet or CREXe, they're websites. They're websites with thousands of listings. Mm-hmm. And you, as a broker, you put your product in those websites basically to generate leads. And you're renting out your brand, you're renting out your data, and you're not getting much back. And so you're actually having, once you do go to those sites, you're having to pay to elevate your exposure on those sites. And still the lead quality is fairly poor, because also the experience for the investor and the tenant isn't great as well. So it's not a modern marketplace. The marketplace that we developed is truly to put the control back in the hands of the intermediary, the deal maker. And we're starting with brokers because that's where the product's going to come from, right? They're staffed with those listings to bring those listings to market. And so we're giving them their own storefront. It's a Shopify of real estate. It's YouTube for creators. And so once they have they don't have to lend their brand, lend their data to anyone else. They control everything. And so they become the destination.
If I work at, I don't know, call your brokerage company, a CBRE or JLL, can I, Andrew Kirsh, become a subscriber or a customer, or does the parent company need to be
It can be both.
the customer?
You could be the customer, and you have a lot of different options. You don't have to have your own custom site and that's hardwired into the operating system, the Duxre operating system. You can choose to kind of go about business in a more traditional fashion where you publish to the Duxre marketplace as well. I would think that our operating system, again, I looked at what existed out there and the problems with what existed out there, and been very thoughtful about what an operating system should be, what tools should be encompassed in that operating system. And so I think when the brokers come to use the Duxre's product, they'll see, oh, this was more intentionally designed. This is comfortable. It just makes sense for me. But I think that we are starting with brokers, but we're not stopping with brokers.
Yeah. Who else do you envision can use this?
We're investors, occupiers. You create the whole ecosystem, and so you're developing tools basically for all the different participants of CRE. You create a great tool for brokers because the deal makers. That's what I understand best. Every day I'm using the product, and I'm seeing where the friction is, and I'm trying to remove the friction from the product. Right, so it's happening every day. But we will once a marketplace is stood up. We already have investors and occupiers creating accounts because they're going after those listings, right? So once it's stood up, we'll start building the tools for all of those. Once you have an operating system, though, where brokers are having to not use as much other applications, you all have your data in one place. And why that's so important is because there's no way you can harness the power and leverage the power of artificial intelligence if you don't have your data in one place. So if you're continuing to use a 15 software application stack, you're never going to be able to use artificial intelligence correctly.
So give me an example. So right now the pain point is you have data that's spread throughout so many different websites that you aren't able to use an AI software to help your day-to-day job.
You can use them within those applications. They're trying to figure out how to connect applications, and yes, they'll do it. They'll be able to patch them together to a certain extent. But what's really happening is, and I think everybody that kind of listens to this, especially the senior brokers, they don't use software anymore.
What do they use?
They hire someone to run their software. Mm-hmm. So they pay someone $80,000 a year that basically acts as a human middleware. Mm-hmm. And this person is there to run their software for them because it's fragmented, it's spread across 15, 20 applications. And that's the hidden cost of software today, is that you have to hire someone to run your software and to manually move data out of the software and into a centralized worksheet or whatever it may be. It's a mess right now, and it's become a bigger mess because of how we've layered on more and more applications. And so what we're doing is we're collapsing that stack.
And what type of feedback have you been getting from your initial customers?
Well, you got to remember, we don't really need to do a focus group because we are the focus group, right? But it's positive. Like, everybody that has used it previously and uses it the correct way it's intuitive. We have other things that we need to build, right? We know that we're developing an email engine right now because we know people want to broadcast out from the system, and so we will get everything put together the right way. And so when we build an email engine, we're looking at all the different solutions that are out there, Constant Contact, MailChimp, but then we'd say, what does a CRE professional really need from those? And then so we go through, we design it the right way, we create the workshop drawings, and then we go through the build of it. The biggest thing that we're doing that's really most cutting edge is once you have that operating system, and yes, we have the modern marketplace, which is a big differentiator as well, but we have the operating system, and we're developing an agentic agent that sits on top of the operating system, that's integrated in operating system, has access to your proprietary data, knows the rules and permissions it has, so it's not accessing someone else's data, and it can truly be an assistant for you. Right, so that's now that it has your data, as can go to the web and combine it with what it can find from the web. It can start retrieving information and do a really good job of that, parsing all those OM documents and pulling information out of it, whatever it may be. But then it gets to the point where it's also ends up being a thought partner for you, because the future of software with AI is it understands who Andrew Kirsh is. It understands what creates value for you, and then it understands the same, what my value pillars are as well. So that's expectation that we're going to start to see from software. And Dash, we call this agentic agent Dash. It sits right on top of the software. So we're going to pull those senior brokers back into software again. We're going to pull them back into the application, because all they have to do is do what they already do with their team. They either text them, they email them, or they talk to them, and that's all you have to do. Dash. The interface of today is what we all see now with ChatGPT and Gemini. It's a chatbot interface, but it needs to be an intelligent agent that's a system that understands and reasons and can use your data along with other data to come up and bring back the solution that you're looking for.
Did you ever think, let's say 3-4 years ago, that you would be this versed in technology, software, engineering, back-end, computer programming?
No. And I've just gotten myself in too big of a hole.
Would you rather communicate now with engineers or with real estate investors?
I love it both. Like, I can't stop doing both, and maybe that's the special sauce of it all.
Well, I was going to ask you, what's your time allocation between Brokerage versus Duxre?
So most of the team is literally on. They come on at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night. It rolls throughout the country because we've got people in London, we got people in Serbia, we got Bali, we got India, we got Ukraine. So they're all literally all over the world.
I could have seen your colleague in India when I was there.
Yeah, that's true. So the slowest part of the day is like 9 to 5 for me.
Yeah,
which is when I go to work. Right.
That's your day brokerage job.
Yeah. But it's a super adjacent, super complementary, and what we're building is allowing, giving me time back. Right. So I am working harder than I've ever worked. I literally weekends and evenings, and I've got a super supportive family. But I'll tell you, starting a company, and especially a technology company, now I understand why founders, most of them are in their 20s. Because it's a physically and mentally intensive, effort to go after.
How has it impacted your golf game?
I don't golf.
I know. I haven't seen you out there.
Yeah.
It's just even hearing you, I feel exhausted. I know you said like you're in this rabbit hole and you keep finding like another hole and another problem to tackle. what will bring you, I guess, the satisfaction of like where you could take a deep breath and say, okay, it was all worth it?
I started this, I signed the development contract in like January of 2020, the first time I wanted to try to build a tool. And when COVID hit, I made a conscious decision that I was going to be all in. Because I knew I was at home. I knew I had capacity because I didn't have to be in the office, and I could do this at night and weekends.
Fewer deals.
I had a little bit of capital of my own capital, so I could kind of jumpstart this thing. And I knew I was at the right age and I had the right amount of experience to really maybe impact the industry. And I'm passionate about it. Like I see the issues, and I want to be part of the solution, and I think that's a competitive advantage. Not even a competitive advantage, because I just want the industry to be able to have its time back. I think that we are all weighed down with again the 15, 20 applications that we're using, and it's like I want to build technology to allow people not to have to use technology. Mm-hmm. I want to build the invisible operating system, right? And I think that everyone would appreciate that, and I think that is where we're going with artificial intelligence. Is it's going to create more work, but it's going to create more opportunities. It's going to eliminate jobs, but those people are going to be able to do funner and more interesting things. But it's going to give people their time back, like, because I think we find ourselves working in these applications that are just going to be collapsed into something that's more, efficient and intuitive for them.
I'm not going to compare it to Steve Jobs, but I guess this is sort of the comparison I'm going to make.
Yeah.
In 2000, when did the iPhone come out? Maybe 2007, 8, 9,
yeah.
in that time period. If you would have asked someone, do you need the iPhone? It can do all these things for you, from, these applications to a phenomenal camera to emailing, web browsing, make reservations, whatever. Everyone would say, I don't really need it. I'm good with the way the status quo is. And then a couple years later, you couldn't live your life without it.
Right.
Now, I'm not going to say, hey, this is the next iPhone, but is it similar? I guess my question is, it's almost the challenge of getting people past the status quo of how they conduct themselves from a day-to-day level of, gosh, Sean, do I really need this? And then a year or two later, they'll look back and they'll say, I can't even imagine my life without this tool. I can't run my business without this tool.
Yeah. I tell the team right now, is one of the things too is like we want to be we want to have great services as well. Like within the company, I always feel like you need to be a great service company as well. You need to understand the user's pain points and be there to help them as well. And so that's part of me just wanting to service my colleagues and help them with their business, is always to bring on people on that can actually have that human touch and human element and help them with their business. But I say right now is people are going to come for our service and stay for the software. They don't know. It's not fair for some to ask somebody to really understand everything that we're building and all that it does.
Right.
So we'll find one or two things that people can make sense of and see the value in, like a website. Everyone understands, like, oh, we'll build a website for you for $10,000, and that'll be your annual subscription. And people are like, yeah, if I went out and built a website, it'd be $15,000. It's hardwired in our operating system, and that website's intelligent, and it's going to give you so much more behavioral data than any other website that you could develop. And we're going to be really good at building and designing these websites. So they come for the website, stay for the software, right? So we'll come for the email engine, stay for the software, right? And then all of a sudden they'll realize, oh wow, my photos, like I don't even have to create photos. I just put in my address of the property, have this data in here, and they put this all in there for me, and they just create these AI images for me. It's like, oh wow. And pretty soon they're like, I don't even need to go into the software. I'm just going to talk with Dash, and Dash is going to do everything for me. But if you want to drive the car, you can get in there and tinker around with it as well. But people are going to be like, I just want to talk to Dash. Mm-hmm. And Dash is kind of funny, so we'll give it a personality. We'll figure it out.
No, it's incredible. I guess my last question here, because I want to be respectful of your time, is for many years you still are a broker and being part of organizations that have been around for decades, and now you're starting one. And so, talk about just a few things that yes, you had this idea, you identified pain points, but you didn't realize in starting a company that certain aspects of being a founder would be as eye-opening, as challenging, as satisfying. What are some either pleasant surprises or, really hard challenges that you've had to deal with?
The people side of the business. The people side of the business is very challenging, but super rewarding too. I mean, and you know that, right? Running this law firm, being able to provide purpose for people, like to see what they've gone through. Like I have engineers in India that have been coding from their hospital bed with ventilators on during COVID. I've had engineers who are coding in the hallways to avoid shrapnel. I have a designer in Ukraine right now who designs from bunkers because and operates on battery packs and takes vacation, asks for a vacation when her husband comes home from work so she could spend some time with him. So we are very fortunate to live the lives that we're living here in this country. And when you are brought more, like I have one of the key executives for the company who's has a doctor appointment today to see if his cancer's come back. So it's like you go through this stuff with people, and it really ends up being the journey that you're on, and that's the thing I have that with the team that we have here at Colliers. I have a wonderful team, and I think that's the thing I'm most blessed with is people around me, and that's what keeps me so energized. That's what keeps me working around the clock, and that also helps me try to be a better person and improve constantly. But that's probably been the thing that has been most eye-opening and different is just the people side of it.
Yeah. Well, it's like you said, most founders are in their 20s and not in their
40s,
mid 40s with a family and an established career with demanding clients, like being a broker in the office industry. And look, I just want to thank you for coming in and really we're on, what are we, 12 years of our relationship, our family's relationship, from school to holidays to work and professional. I can't wait to see the success of Duxre. I already know how successful you are as a broker and one of our leading thought leaders of our community. And so thank you for coming on and really all the success for you and Duxre and Colliers.
Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate being here.
Absolutely. And that's another edition of Real Talk.
You've been listening to Real Talk, Real Estate Discussions with Andrew Kirsh. You can catch prior episodes at sklarkirsh.com and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, and for sharing the show with others.